Hi, good morning. It's Tuesday, it's 9 o'clock. I'm Victoria Derbyshire. Welcome to our programme. In exactly half an hour's time, the highest court in the land will rule on whether Parliament or the Prime Minister is in control of the UK's divorce proceedings from the EU.
I'll be reporting live from the Supreme Court. We'll bring you that decision as it happens, plus all the reaction to it from here at the courts.
Of course, as Ben said, that decision live, and throughout the programme we will bring you plenty of reaction and explain what it means.
I'm Alison Young, I'm a Professor of Public Law at the University of Oxford, and I'm here to explain the meaning of the judgment. This is not about whether we leave, this is about how we leave the European Union.
Plus, we'll bring you reaction from senior politicians and voters who are here to give their verdict on the decision.
Judges are not hell-bent on dismissing the views of British people. They just want to ensure that Brexit is carried out with a legitimate mandate.
It's absolutely right that judges clarify the law. The rule of law is fundamental to any democracy, and citizens have a right to clarify important constitutional questions.
The judges have no right to interfere with the democratic wishes of the British electorate. Let's stop wasting time with Article 50 and get on to repealing the European Communities Act.
Much more from our audience throughout the programme, and wherever you are in the UK, really keen to hear your reaction to the ruling, which, as I said, is in 30 minutes' time. Good morning, hello, welcome to the programme. We're live until 11. It's going to be a very busy couple of hours. As you would expect, we're going to be dominated today by reaction to the Supreme Court ruling due in half an hour's time. As always, get in touch. Use the hashtag #VictoriaLive. If you're texting, you'll be charged at the standard network rate. It is, of course, the top story. The Supreme Court will deliver its ruling at 9:30 on whether the Prime Minister needs Parliament's approval before she can start the process of leaving the EU. The long-awaited judgment will decide how the EU's Article 50 exit clause is triggered. The government argues that ministers have the power to do that, but opponents say they need Parliament's approval, as Chris Mason reports. 7 minutes for the Prime Minister to find out what the Supreme Court justices say, and 23 minutes for the rest of us. Stay tuned, we'll bring you the ruling live here on BBC News, of course. Here's Joanna now with the rest of the morning's news. Morning.
Morning. President Trump has signed an order to formally withdraw America from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, fulfilling one of his campaign pledges. The trade deal involving a dozen countries was agreed by Barack Obama. President Trump has also cut funding for international groups which perform or provide advice on abortions and has frozen the hiring of some federal workers. That's a summary of the latest BBC News. More at 9:30.
Thank you very much. We have got voters from all over the UK here this morning, and they're going to give their reaction to the Supreme Court ruling at 9:30. Wherever you are in the UK, do get in touch. Use the hashtag #VictoriaLive. What do you think of the fact that 11 justices will make this decision as to whether it's the Prime Minister or Parliament who has the final say on triggering the process of leaving the European Union? Do get in touch in the usual ways. Right, the sport now, and Reshman is at the BBC Sports Centre. Big news in Formula One, Reshman.
Yes, absolutely, Victoria, because Bernie Ecclestone, the man in charge of Formula One for nearly 40 years, has been removed from his post. Now, the 86-year-old makes way following a £6.4 billion takeover by the US giant Liberty Media. Now, Chase Carey, the new chief executive, has appointed the former F1 Supremo as a chairman emeritus. That is basically an honorary chairman and an advisor to the board. But Ecclestone says he has no idea what his new job title means and insists that he was forced out.
Thank you very much.
That is it for now. I'll be back with more sport in the next hour. Back to you, Victoria.
Cheers, Reshman. Thank you. Viv tweets this. Parliament's already voted. What's the point of all this today? Sci-fi. It's called parliamentary process. It's how our democracy works. It's really incredibly simple to any non-dictators/idiots. Ying tweets this. Irrelevant in the end. Article 50 will be triggered come hell or high water. And Roy says unelected judges should not interfere. So who decides? That's the question. The Prime Minister or Parliament? What is at stake is who controls the divorce proceedings with the EU, the triggering of what's known as Article 50, which begins the formal process of Britain leaving the EU. OK, so what could happen in 15 minutes' time? Let's speak now to Professor Alison Young from Oxford University, an expert in public law. Plus, we have a group of politicians from various parties. Theresa Villiers for the Conservatives, who campaigned to leave the European Union. Labour's Owen Smith, who voted to remain. UKIP's Suzanne Evans, who voted leave. Stephen Gethins for the SNP, who voted remain. Tom Brake for the Lib Dems, who also voted remain. And as you know, we have voters from right across the UK with us as well. Alison Young, what do you expect to happen? How much has Gina Miller and her banker backers cost the public purse? This money could have been spent on the NHS rather than defending the tantrums of the 1%. OK, coming up to 9:30. Let's go live to the Supreme Court as we await the judgment. Ben Brown is there. Ben, what's going to happen in the next few minutes?
Yeah, Victoria, at 9:30 we will hear from Lord Newberger, who is the President of the Supreme Court, and he will deliver the judgment of the 11 Supreme Court justices. They sat for 4 days last month to hear this case, and essentially they have to decide whether it is Parliament that must trigger Article 50 to begin the process of the UK leaving the EU, or whether the government can do that with its prerogative powers. The Prime Minister already knows the judgment. Theresa May was told about it at 9:15. The top lawyers involved in this case already know as well. They have an advanced sight of this judgment. We will get it at 9:30 in a minute's time, a 5-minute summary of the judgment, and then we'll get the full judgment online. Let's talk to our legal affairs correspondent Clive Coleman quickly, just before the judgment. Clive, in a nutshell, what have they got to decide?
That's John Shaw. He's from an organisation called Fair Deal for Expats, speaking live outside the Supreme Court. You have been watching history being made. By 8-3, the Supreme Court justices ruled that the government cannot trigger Article 50, that's the process for leaving the EU, without an Act of Parliament. So MPs and peers will get their say. Let's go straight to Norman, our political guru. Immediate reaction from the Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, I believe, Norman.
Hi, Vic. We're getting a sense of how the different parties are going to play this. So Jeremy Corbyn has put out a statement. The significant thing about it, as expected, he says Labour will not frustrate the process for invoking Article 50. So Labour will not vote against Article 50. However, here is the but. Actually, let's just cross back. I think Gina Miller's probably just talking now.
Thank you, Norman, for the moment. I know you'll be back with us, bringing more reaction. Email from Vinny. Why do I bother to vote? Mike says elite judges vote in favour of the elite. This is disgusting and gives those who are bitter the chance to rob me of my right. Rob says it was 8-3. Those 3 Supreme Court justices are definitely not enemies of the people. They just had a different view. Bridget, a sensible verdict from the Supreme Court. Now it's up to our MPs like Owen Smith to stop Brexit. Are they brave enough?
Yes.
Ooh. There's not enough of you to stop Brexit. Let's be realistic. Don't raise people's expectations.
Jeremy Corbyn is... No, well, I think that's probably right.
I'm going to say thank you to Stephen Gethins, to Theresa Villiers, Tom Brake, Suzanne Evans, Owen Smith. Thank you very much for your time and your patience this morning. We watched history being made here in the studio. Let's go back to the Supreme Court and Ben Brown.
Yes, Victoria, I've got 2 of the key lawyers with me here from this case. The lawyers representing the 2 claimants, Gina Miller, the businesswoman, and Dea dos Santos, the hairdresser. So James Libson represents Gina Miller, solicitor for Gina Miller, David Green for Dea dos Santos. So you must be delighted, are you? An 8-3 majority. All right, well, very good to talk to both of you. Congratulations from your point of view on the result. James Libson and David Green, 2 of the key solicitors in this case, and celebrating that 8-3 judgment, which they will see as a victory. Victoria, back to you.
Thank you very much. It's 22 minutes past 10. Reaction coming in thick and fast to the ruling at the Supreme Court this morning. Let's talk now to Keir Starmer. He's Labour's Brexit spokesman. Good morning to you, Sir Keir Starmer. We hear that Labour is going to table 3 amendments to this bill. The most tricky, apparently, a meaningful vote at the end of the negotiations. Can you explain to our audience in layman's terms what that means, please? OK, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it, Sir Keir Starmer. He's Labour's Brexit spokesman. We've got some Labour voters and some ex-Labour voters here from around the UK. Let me ask you how you think Jeremy Corbyn has handled Brexit in the last few weeks and months.
Me?
Vara, go ahead.
I think that he's in a very difficult situation. I think that half the Labour voters voted in and half voted out. He got 63% of Labour voted.
And now we just need to move on in Brexit.
OK, thank you all very much. Thank you. Thanks for coming on the programme. Thank you for your patience and time this morning. Plenty more reaction to today's Supreme Court result throughout the day here on BBC News. I'm back tomorrow. Have a good day.
Good morning. We've seen some real contrasting weather this morning. There is still